Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is day 4, I think, of reading every day for 30 minutes. It's currently 8:40 in the morning. Um, Today's date is May 11th. You can't. Oh yeah, there you go. May 11th. I changed the scenery. Changed the not scenery. But I just changed the angle of my camera because the lighting is always bad. So I think this is a lot better. But yeah, here we go. Pretty freaking melodramatic, right? The world has seen one or two better stories, I know that. One or 200,000 better ones, more like it. I ought to have this. This is a product of an undergraduate creative writing workshop stamped on every page because that's just what it was, at least to a certain point. It seems both painfully derivative and painfully sophomoric to me now, style by Hemingway, except we've got the whole thing in the present tense for some reason. How to freaking trendy theme by Faulkner. Could anything be more serious, more literary? But even its pretensions can't hide the fact that it's an extremely sexual story written by an extremely inexperienced young man. At the time I wrote Stud City, I had been to bed with two girls and I had ejaculated prematurely all over one of them. Not much like Chico in the foregoing tale, I guess. Its attitude toward women goes beyond hostility and to a point which verges on actual ugliness. Two of women in Stud City are sluts, and the third is a simple re, re, recept, recept, what? Receptal who says things like "I love you, Shiko," and "Come in, I'll give you cookies." Shiko, on the other hand, is a Mako cigarette smoking working class hero who could have stepped whole and breathing from grooves of Bruce Springsteen record. Although Springsteen was yet to be heard from when I published the story in the college literacy magazine, where it ran between a poem called Images of Me and an essay on student paradals written entirely in lowercase. It is the work of a young man every bit as insecure as he was inexperienced. And yet it was the first story I ever wrote that felt like my story. The first one that really felt whole after 5 years of trying, the first one that might still be able to stand up, even when its props taken away. Ugly but alive. Even now, when I read it, stifled at a smile at its pseudo toughness and its pretensions, I can see the true face of Gordon LaChance lurking just behind the lines of print. A Gordon LaChance younger than the one living and writing now, one certainly more idealistic than the best-selling novelist who is more apt to have his paperback contracts reviewed than his books, but not so young as the one who went with his friends that day to see the body of a dead kid named Ray Brower. A Gordon LaChance halfway along the process of losing the shine. No, it's not a very good story. Its author was too busy listening to other voices to listen as closely as he should have to the one coming from inside. But it was the first time I had ever really used the place I knew and things I felt in a piece of fiction. And there was a kind of dreadful exhilaration in seeing things that had troubled me for years come out in my new form, a form over which I had imposed control. It had been years since that childhood idea of Denny being in the closet of spokenly preserved room had occurred to me. I would have honestly believed I had forgotten it. Yet it is in Stud City, only slightly changed, but controlled. I've resisted the urge to change it a lot more, to rewrite it, to juice it up. And that urge was fairly strong because I find the story quite embarrassing now. But there are still things in it I like, things that would be cheapened by changes made by this later LaChance, who has the first threads of gray in his hair, things that image of shadows of Johnny's white tee, or that the rain ripples on Jane's naked body that seem better than they have any right to be. Also, it was the first story I never showed to my mother or father. There was too much Denny in it, too much Castle Rock, and most of all, too much 1960. You always know the truth because when you cut yourself or someone else with it, there's always a bloody show. That's such a crazy line. Wait, let me read that again. You always know the truth because when you cut yourself or someone else with it, there's always a bloody show. That's so true. Anyway, my room was on the second floor and it must have been at least 90 degrees up there. It would be 110 by afternoon, even with all the windows open. I was really glad I wasn't sleeping there that night, and the thought where we were going made me excited all over again. I made two blankets into a bedroll and tied it with my old belt. I collected all my money, which was 68 cents. Okay. Then I was ready to go. I went down to the back stairs to avoid meeting my dad in front of the house, but I hadn't needed to worry. He was still out in the garden with the hose, making useless rainbows in the air and looking through them. I walked down Summer Street and cut through a vacant lot to Carbine, where the offices of the Castle Rock Hall stand today. I was headed up Carbine toward Clubhouse when a car pulled over the curb and Chris got out. He had his old Boy Scout pack in one hand and two blankets rolled up and tied with cloths rope in the other. Thanks, mister, he said, and trotted over to join me as the car pulled away. His Boy Scout canteen was slugged around his neck and around one arm so that it finally ended up banging on his hip. His eyes were sparkling. Gordy, you want to see something? Sure, I guess so. What? Come on down here first. He pointed at the narrow space between the Blue Point Dinner and Castle Rock drugstore. What is it, Chris? Come on, I said. He ran down the alley, and after a brief moment, that's all it took me to cast aside my better judgment, I ran after him. The two buildings were set slightly toward each other and rather running parallel. They were rather running parallel, and so the alley narrowed as it went back. We waded through trashy drifts of old newspapers and stepped over cruel sparky nests and broken beer and soda bottles. Chris cut behind Blue Point and put his bedroll down. There were 8 or 9 garbage cans lined up here, and stench was incredible. Phew, Chris, come on, give me a break. Give me your arm, Chris said by rote. No, sincerely, I'm gonna throw up. The words broke off in my mouth, and I forgot all about the smelly garbage cans. Chris had unslugged his pack and opened it and reached inside. Now he was holding out a huge pistol with dark wood grips. You want to be the Lone Ranger or the Cisco Kid? Chris asked, grinning. Walking, talking, Jesus, where'd you get that? Hawked it out of my dad's bureau. It's a 45. Yeah, I can see that, I said, although it had been a 38 or a point 357. For all I knew, in spite of all the John D. MacDonald and Ed McBains I'd read, the only pistol I'd ever seen up close was the one Constable Bannerman carried. And although all the kids asked him to take it out of his holster, Bannerman never would. Man, your dad's gonna hide you when he finds out. You said he was a mean streak anyway. His eyes just went on dancing. That's it, man. He ain't gonna find out nothing. Him and those other rummies are all laid up down in Harrison with 6 or 8 bolts of wine. They won't be back for a week. Frickin' rummies. His lip curled. He was the only guy in our gang who never took take a drink, even to show he had, big balls. He said he wasn't going to grow up to be a freaking tosspot like his old man. And he told me once privately that This was after the Despain twins showed up with a six pack they'd hawk from their old man, and everybody teased Chris because he wouldn't take a beer or even swallow, that he was scared to drink. He said his father never got to his nose all the way of the bottle anymore. That his older brother had been drunk out of his tits when he raped that girl, and that eyeball was always guzzling Purple Jesus and Ace Merrill and Charlie Hogan and Billy Tessio. What he asked me, did I think his chances of letting go of that bottle would be once he picked it up? Maybe you think that's funny. A 12-year-old worrying that he might be an incipient alcoholic, but it wasn't funny to Chris. Not at all. He thought about the possibility a lot. He'd had occasion to. You got shells for it? 9 of them. All that was left in the box. He'll think he used them himself, shooting at cans while he was drunk. Is it loaded? No, Christ's sake, who do you think I am? I finally took the gun. I liked the heavy way it sat on my hand. I could see myself as Steve Carlisle of the 87th Squad, going after the guy, the heckler, or maybe covering Mayor, or Kling while they broke into desperate junkie sleaze apartment. I sighted on one of the smelly trash cans and squeezed the trigger. Kablam! The gun bucked in my hand. Fire licked from the end. It felt as if my wrist had just been broken. My heart vaulted nimbly into the back of my mouth and crouched there trembling. A big black hole appeared in the corrugated metal surface of the trash can. It was the work of an evil conjurer. Jesus! I screamed. Chris was cackled. Kiss was whoa. Chris was cackling wildly in real amusement or hysterical terror. I couldn't tell you. You did it, Gordy. Gordy, you did it. He buckled. Hey, Gordy LaChance is shooting up Castle Rock. Shut up. Let's get out of here, I screamed and grabbed him by the shirt. As we ran, the back door of the Blue Point jerk open and Francine Tupper stepped out in her white rayon waitress uniform. Who did that? Who's letting off cherry bombs back here? We ran like hell, cutting behind the drugstore and the hardware store and the Emporium Gallerium, which sold antiques and junk and dime books. We climbed a fence, spiking our palms and splinters, and finally came out on Current Street. I threw the .45 at Chris as we ran. He was killing himself laughing, but caught it and somehow managed to stuff it back into his knapsack and close one of the snaps. Once around the corner of Curran and back on Carbon Street, we slowed to a walk so we couldn't look suspicious running in the heat. Chris was still giggling. Man, you should have seen your face. Oh, that was priceless. That was really fine. Uh, a frickin' A. He shook his head and slapped his leg and howled. You knew it was loaded, didn't you? You wet. I'm going to be in trouble. That Tupper babe saw me. Shoot. She thought it was a firecracker. Besides, old Thunderjugs Tupper can't see past the end of her own nose. You know that. Thinks wearing glasses would spoil her pretty face. He put on one palm against the small of his back and bumped his hips, and we got laughing again. Well, I don't care. That was a mean trick, Chris. Really. Come on, Gordy. He put a hand on my shoulder. I didn't know it was loaded. Honest to God, I swear on my mother's name, I just took it out of my dad's bureau. He always unloads it. He must have been really drunk when he put it away the last time. You really didn't load it? No, sir. You swear on your mother's name, even if she goes to hell for you telling a lie? I swear. He crossed himself and spit his and spit his face as open and repentant as any choir boy. But when he turned into the vacant, but when we turned into the vacant lot where our treehouse was, and saw Vern and Teddy sitting in their bed rolls waiting for us, he started to laugh again. He told them the whole story, and after everybody had had their yucks, Teddy asked him what Chris thought they needed a pistol for. Nothing, Chris said, except we might see a bear, something like that. Besides, it's spooky sleeping out at night in the woods. Everybody nodded at that. Chris was the biggest, toughest guy in our gang, and he could always get away with saying things like that. Teddy, on the other hand, would have gotten his his ass ragged off if he even hinted he was afraid of the dark. Did you set up that tent in the field? Teddy asked Vern. Yeah, and I put two turned on flashlights in it so it'll look like we're there after dark. Hot shoot, I said, and clapped Vern on the back for him. That was thinking. He grinned and blushed. So let's go, Teddy said. Come on, it's almost 12 already. Chris got up and we gathered around him. We'll walk across B-Man's field and behind that furniture place by Sonny's Texaco, he said. Then we'll get on the railroad tracks down by the dump and walk across the trestle into Harlow. How far do you think it's gonna be? Teddy asked. Chris shrugged. Harlow's big. We're gonna be walking at least 20 miles. That sounds right to you, Gordy? Yeah, it might be 30. Even if it's 30, we ought to be there by tomorrow afternoon, if no one goes pussy. No pussies here, Teddy said at once. We all looked at each other for a second. Meow, Vern said, and we all laughed. Come on, guys, Chris said, and shouldered his pack. We walked out to the vacant lot together, Chris slightly in the lead. Ah, these kids. By the time we got across Beeman's field, we had struggled up the cindery embankment to Great Southern and Western Main tracks. We had all taken our shirts off and tied them around our waists. We were sweating like pigs. At the top of the embankment, we looked down the tracks toward where we'd go. I'll never forget that moment, no matter how old I get. I was the only one with a watch, a cheap Timex I'd gotten as a premium for selling Cloverine Band salve the year before. Its hand stood at straight up noon, and the noon beat down on the dry, shadeless vista before us with the savage heat. You could feel it working to get in under your skull and fry your brains. Behind us was Castle Rock, spread out on the long hill that was known as Castle View, surrounding its green and shady common. Further down Castle River, you could see the stacks of woolen mills spewing smoke into a sky the color of gunmetal and spewing waste into the water. The Jolly Furniture Barn was on our left, and straight ahead of us was the railroad tracks, bright and heliographing into the sun. They paralleled the Castle River, which was our left. To our right was a lot of overgrown scrubland. There's motorcycle tracks there, and they have scrambles every Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. An old abandoned water tower stood on the horizon, rusty and somehow scary. We stood there for one noontime moment, and then Chris said impatiently, Come on, let's get going. We walked beside the tracks in the cinders, kicking up little puffs of blackish dust at every step. Our socks and sneakers were soon gritty with it. Vern started singing Roll Me Over into the Clover, but soon quit it, which was a break for our ears. Only Teddy and Chris had brought canteens, and we were all hitting them pretty hard. We could fill the canteens again at the dump faucet, I said. My dad told me that's a safe well. It's 190 feet deep. Okay, Chris said, being the tough platoon leader. That'll be good. That'll be a good place to take 5 anyway. What about food? Teddy asked suddenly. I bet nobody thought to bring something to eat. I know I didn't. Chris stopped. Shoot, I didn't either. Gordy? I shook my head, wondering how I could have been so dumb. Vern? Zip, Vern said. Sorry. Well, let's see how much money we got, I said. I untied my shirt, spread it on the cinders, and dropped my own 60 cents onto it. The coins glittered feverishly in the sunlight. Chris had a tattered dollar and 2 pennies. Teddy had 2 quarters and 2 nickels. Vern had exactly 7 cents. 2.37, I said. Not bad. There's a store at the end of that little road that goes into the dump. Somebody will have to walk down there and get some hamburger and some tonics while the others rest. Who? Vern said. We'll match for it when we get to the dump. Come on. I slid all the money into my pants pocket and was trying my shirt tying my shirt around my waist again when Chris hollered, "Train!" I put my hand out on the rails to feel it, then even though I couldn't I could already hear it. The rail was strumming crazily for a moment. It was like holding the train in my hand. Paratroops over the side, Vern bawled, and halfway down the embankment in one crazy clownish stride. Vern was nuts for playing paratroops. Any place the ground was soft, a gravel pit, a haymow, a embankment like this one. Chris jumped after him. The train was really loud now, probably heading straight in our side of the river toward Lewiston. Instead of jumping, Teddy turned in the direction from which it was coming. His thick glasses glistened in the sun. His long hair flopped untidily over his brow in sweat-soaked stringers. Go on, Teddy, I said. No. Huh. No, no, I'm gonna dodge it. He looked at me, his magnified eyes frantic with excitement. A train dig it? What strucks after a frickin' dodge? You're crazy, man. You want to get killed? Just like, oh my god, just like the beach at Normandy, Teddy yelled, and strode out into the middle of the tracks. He stood on one of the cross ties, slightly balanced. I stood stunned for a moment, unable to believe stupidly of such width and breadth. Then I grabbed him, dragged him, and fighting and protesting to the embankment, and pushed him over. I jumped after him, and Teddy caught me a good one in the guts while I was still in the air. The wind whooshed out of me, but I was still able to hit him in the sternum with the knee and knock him flat on the back before he could get all the way up. I landed gasping and sprawling, and Teddy grabbed me around the neck. He was rolling away to the bottom of the embankment, hitting and clawing at each other while Chris and Vern stared at him, stupidly surprised. You little Teddy was screaming at me. You don't you throw your weight around me. Don't throw your weight around on me. I'll kill you, you. I was getting my breath back now and made it to my feet. I backed away as Teddy advanced, holding my open hands up to slap away his punches, half laughing and half scared. Teddy was no fool around when he went into one of his screaming fits. He'd take on a big kid in that stare, and after the big kid broke both of his arms, he'd bite. Teddy, you can dodge anything you want after we see what we're going to see, but whack on the shoulder as one wildly swinging fist got past me. Until then, no one's supposed to see us. You whack on the side of the face, and then we might have a real fight if Chris and Vern, stupid wet end, hadn't grabbed us and kept us apart. Above us, the train roared by thunder of diesel exhaust and a heavy clack clacking of boxcar wheels. A few cinders bounced down the embankment, and the argument was over. At least until we could hear ourselves talk again. It was only a short fright when the Camboos had trailed by Teddy. It was, well, it was only a short fright when the caboose had trailed by. Teddy said, I'm gonna kill him. At least give him a fat lip. He struggled against Chris, but Chris only grabbed him tighter. Calm down, Teddy, Chris said quietly, and he kept saying it until Teddy stopped struggling and just stood there. His glasses hang askew, and his hearing aid cord dangled limply against his chest on its way down to the battery, which had shoved into the pockets of his jeans. When he was completely still, Chris turned to me and said, What the hell are you fighting with him about, Gordon? He wanted to dodge the train. I figured the engineer would see him and report it. That might send a cop out. Ah, he'd been too busy making chocolate in his jars, Teddy said. But he didn't seem angry anymore. The storm had passed. Gordy was trying to do the right thing, Burns said. Come on, peace. Peace, you guys, Chris agreed. Yeah, okay, I said, and held up my hand and palm up. Peace, Teddy. Could have dodged it, he said. You know that, Gordy. Yeah, I said, although the thought turned me cold inside. I know it. Okay, peace then. Skin it, man, Chris ordered, and let go of Teddy. Chris slapped his hand down on mine and hard enough to sting, then turned it over. I slapped his. Frickin' pussy LeChance, Teddy said. Meow, I said. Come on, you guys, Bryn said. Let's go, okay? Uh, go. What? Okay, what's this? Okay. Go anywhere you want, but don't go here, Chris said solemnly, and Vern drew back as if to hit him. Okay, I only have 2 minutes left. I'm a slow reader. I don't know. Can I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? Can I read 8 pages in 2 minutes? Probably not. But I did read. I read 10 pages today. Yay! Oh my god, so fun. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's all, guys. I think I struggle a lot with pronouncing some words, and I don't know if like I'm not sure why. I just don't know how to like pronounce words sometimes. I'm trying though. But yeah, I think I'm kind of flowing a lot better to read, right? I'm not like taking a lot of pauses. Um, at least from that first video that I did, it was absolutely terrible. Like I was like really like squinting. I was like really hyper focused on reading. So yeah, I'm gonna go to school. I'm gonna get ready to go to school. But that's it. That's all. I will see y'all tomorrow.